back and forth with Roger on it. I'm waiting until I get an opportunity with him somewhere, and we'll have that debate of using the utility of these kind of coins for transactions. I was a huge proponent of it, but I think that coins that don't have limits are best used for that, not coins that have limits.
Yeah,
the supply demand dynamic doesn't make sense. I mean, I get that it's utility, but it's like saying talking over old school phones was great, but wireless is a lot better, right? You're not dragging a line with you. I get that it's amazing technology. I get the fact that we can talk and we can be in great distances. It's that same kind of argument to me from a mechanical standpoint, right? But technology evolved, and now we can walk around with wireless devices, but it doesn't take away from all the stuff that needs to be hardlined, So it's, I don't know, with this whole Bitcoin Cash and all that kind of stuff, it's like, it's still limited, bro. At some point, if it grows up exponentially, why would I want to spend it?
Exactly, yeah. That's one of the discussions we have all the time with me and my buddies at work is, if you're spending your Bitcoin now, are you actually losing money for your future self?
Oh, for sure.
By spending your money now. And yeah, the answer is yes. But
yeah,
at the same time, it's like, you have to take profit, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure.
At some point, you need to take profit for yourself, just so that you can be like, look, I did this with my Bitcoin. That's what it's all about, right? To spend it, to use it. And that was one of the reasons why I bought this laptop. I was like, I have all this Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And
might as well use some of it.
Yeah, might as well use some of it. But I mean, I don't have a whole lot, but I got enough to be like, yeah, okay, I got some. Let me throw some money around and buy a laptop.
Absolutely.
So I got my stream up. How about you?
It's not liking the Skype, so I gotta add one more thing here. It was sitting there spinning. Hold on. And if we don't stream on mine, it's not a big deal. I mean, I'll get on Discord and just have everybody on our channel come over, because they knew that we were going to stream tonight on Discord. So
let's see here. We got a lot of people on the pub wanted me to do a stream with you, and they're like, you need to contact this guy. You need to get a live stream with him. Please get a live stream with him. And I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do. I'll do my best. I'm not a popular guy. I'm not like my partner Peter. I'm not a popular guy like him, but I'm trying to be.
Yeah, hey, that's you make interactions with people and stuff. I mean, a lot of people ask for what I've done with BBT and stuff, why I haven't done more and stuff collabs. But the point of BBT was just to make sure people knew how to get into the space and educate people on like the day-to-day operational stuff, not just like the review channels. I like all the Linus and Jay 2 Cents and all those guys, but I didn't want to model it after just a review channel, or even like CryptoMind or some of the other guys that just kind of take a shot across the bow on that kind of stuff. I wanted to get down into the explicit details of it and answer some of those hard questions,
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where Peter and I came from, was that we didn't want, at first we started it, we just wanted it to be us and keep all the secrets to ourselves. And then when this community just blew up, we were like, no, we got to do more than just this. Let's see, what's going on with mine? Why does mine just say display capture? It should be showing me. Is it showing me? What I can do? I'll do my best. Yeah, it does. I'm not a popular.
Yeah, mine's coming up now. XSplit. Part of my problem was I needed to update the XSplit on this laptop, and it wasn't taking capture. So now it's coming up now. Let's see here. Change the title on this too. Yeah, YouTube is flaky sometimes.
Yeah. See, like I've set up people for like this streaming on Twitch and things like that. And I found it to be pretty easy, but then Peter started doing it on YouTube and was like, man, YouTube is so much easier. It's a lot easier to get this stuff done. He said, I just turned it on and it worked.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean it's good. It's just like things like I had already all the titles and stuff for this tonight set for the live stream, but I had it saved on another computer, and when I came over to this one, since I opened up this one and it had my previous stream, it now overwrote and then did the auto save because it tries to save all your changes, so it just wiped everything. I'm like, no, bastard. All right, let me get logged in here to XSplit. I want to try to get OBS Studio set up because I mean I've been paying for XSplit Broadcaster and it's still kind of buggy.
Yeah.
All right.
There's one guy, I swear he like is always monitoring my channel. As soon as I come up with something, he's like automatically got like my channel up. And
Oh yeah, he's in. Yeah.
I'm surprised he hasn't even said anything yet, because he's usually like the first one in. And I was just setting my YouTube up the other day, and he immediately jumped in my channel and did a comment, and I was like, I'm not even streaming. I just was like literally just linking my account, and he was already in there, and I was like, wow, okay, that's cool. Let's see.
Make sure I got the right name. It's Bitcoin.Pub group. What's the actual channel name you have? That way I know.
Mine is BiteSizeMining.
Bite size. Okay.
And there he is, Tristan. Or there's one guy, Tristan. What's up, Tristan? I can't put. What sucks is I can't put my chat anywhere because I don't have another monitor to like move my chat. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be over a little bit of the stuff. Yeah. I like to put it just like maybe I can put it right here.
All right. So that's saved, and now let's add this as a source, not the Elgato.
And move your mic away from your face a little bit more too.
Yeah.
There you go.
Kind of went up. Yeah, I was gonna set up my other mic. I got a Rode mics here to the side, but I need a controller for the laptop. It doesn't have enough gain.
Gotcha.
To boost it.
Yeah, all my other recording stuff is at home, and I was like, I don't have time to grab it. Kind of rushing today.
Oh yeah. Screen capture. Yeah, the Elgato is just not. Or this yeah, if I can't get this in a second here, we'll just go. It's not a. Here we go. Skype video widget. Yeah, the Skype visit. It just keeps crashing. Yeah.
Anthony, what's up?
Yeah, we'll just let you broadcast it. I'm gonna make sure my guys are on. The folks that monitor us.
You can jump over to my stream or whatever.
Yeah, I'll just have them come onto yours, so we'll load it up.
Yeah.
I'll hold on real quick. All right, I have my wife she's gonna do it in under announcements. Yeah, on Discord. There we go. Yeah, it's set up. This gives me a tasker to get fixed for the next time.
Yeah.
Well, I think if I had I need to get the Elgato. I have all these different capture devices, like the Elgato HD capture. This thing right here.
Yeah.
And this one does not work with like porting the HD camera. So I'm using the on, and since I can't do that, I can't use the the thing around. So I was trying to capture the internal camera with and it just kept crashing. And it's probably just the driver that's with that internal camera. It's just doesn't like XSplit. So Elgato Skype. I like make myself notes for I don't forget that kind of stuff. All right, man. So whenever is the audio and everything else good, and video seems pretty decent?
Yeah, everything looks good. Just trying to see if we get more people in, but we can.
She's got when you go. Are we live right now? Or are you?
I'm live
are you
right
in
now.
The lobby? Okay, cool. Yeah. If she can, do you see us on Bite Size? You know, are you live streaming on which one?
BiteSizeMining.
YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube.
On YouTube? BiteSizeMining? She doesn't see that it's live.
Shows me live on this side. Let me see.
YouTube. Yeah, because she's going to paste the link.
Yeah, Tristan says we're live on over here.
All right. Bite size Bitcoin, bite size.
See it?
It's not.
You see it.
I have bite size Bitcoin. That's not you, right? That's
That's my partners.
That's your partners, yeah. It's not bite size Bitcoin. It's bite size mining. She goes, well, then I'm on the wrong one. Yeah, we'll get it, man. It's all good.
It's fine. It's fine.
I had your partner's bookmark. That's the one that when he linked.
Yeah. He started his. I mean, we started that back in, I want to say June or something like that. And I mean, it just blew up. It was just like, oh, we lost him. Technical difficulties, guys.
You good?
I'm good.
That was my fault. All right, well, we're good. We're good now. Here, you got it now? You want to sort that one? Okay. Yep, we're good.
All right.
That was my fault. Like I went to your thing to forward it.
Yeah.
I killed it.
Anthony says your mic is still too close. All he hears is your breathing.
Yeah, this is the one that I was going to be using, and it's not.
We can hear you good right now. Yeah, so we started that, or he started that YouTube page back in probably about June, and it just took off. And he's got just a niche for doing videos, and he's got time to do it all. And so he just took it and ran with it. And then before then, him and I had Peter and I had met at Chuck E. Cheese at a birthday party, and he had told me at that time, he said, I'm quitting my job. Or he was telling someone else, he said, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to full-time play video games and stream on YouTube and Twitch. And I was like, I tapped him on the shoulder and I was like, hey, man, what kind of computer do you have? And I asked him all these questions. And I told him, I said, I've helped people set up Twitch. Hey, Dirkland. So if you need any help, let me know. And by the way, and at this time, I had only known NiceHash. NiceHash was the only mining software I knew at the time. And I said, you got dual 1080 Ti's. You know, you can make like $20 a day mining on NiceHash. And he went home, he hooked it up, and he called me up and said, hey, you don't know this, but I'm an entrepreneur, and I do startup businesses.
Yeah, nice.
So that's how we
Got
got
it.
started.
Yeah, it's the space in general. I mean, it's going exponential. We're so busy right now with just not just answering a lot of and helping a lot of the community and questions and stuff, because that's kind of what I wanted to eventually build, is exactly what's kind of coming together right now with just a huge ecosystem. But in the early days, it was very, a lot of people were like, hey man, don't let everybody know you're going to kill the difficulty, and it's going to give us less. And I'm like, well, I look at it more of a macroeconomic view of like, if there's more people involved and it's a larger mesh network and it's a huge community, the one to many of those connections of those people, if you have a mining rig and you have friends and people that come over and they see that, not everybody's going to get into the mining, but a lot of people are going to get into the crypto, right? They're going to say, hey, you know what? I don't have time for that. I don't have the space. I don't have the heat. I don't have, whatever, but I'll buy some crypto. I want to hold it. And now you're creating kind of this market of, you're a producer, you got a consumer, and people now see the utility of the exchange side of it. And that's not even getting into all the like the libertarian side about big government and all that kind of stuff. It's just the mechanical use of it. And so more people that are into it, and the more people that are using it and seeing that platform, that sets a stage. That's all this is setting a stage that then the innovation can come in and modernize the, not just proof of work, but get into that stuff that I've been talking about with like proof of effort, to where you can have this serial asynchronous communication that throws down, packages to the computers that when they can do parallel processing. I mean, there's a huge, as an engineer, from the engineering side of my brain, I'm like, that's a lot of horsepower that's distributed, that gives me fault tolerance, that I can go and get a whole bunch of like technical jobs processed. And I don't have to like create all these crazy agreements, and I don't have to create, the paperwork exercise and the licensing agreements and all this stuff that comes with that territory. Normally I have this, global community that is being compensated by the hardware itself, by the technology. The incentive value of doing the work is already built in. I mean, it's something that's not talked about a lot, because people look at the utility of the transaction and they look at the utility, you get like the routers and stuff. Oh, it's just about, spinning it and showing it and not having to, be unfeathered. That's just like one use case in many, right? And it's the one that's touted the most. And then you got the one that's really strong coming up, which is the store of value, where you can, traditionally store value into it and hold it and go offline with it, and then at some point exercise that for some kind of exchange of other value that hopefully is a lot higher. And I mean, that's just like use case two, right? Yeah. So there's so many other things, and it's like when I talk to people about mining, it's the top thing with it obviously is profitability, and how can I participate in this, and I'm just plugging and carrying and feeding for it, and it somehow gives me value. And it's like, you're holding up a network, man. Your machine is doing it, providing a service, and for that service, it's getting compensated.
That's one of the things that people always ask us. They're like, "Why do you mine?" It's better to just invest money into Bitcoin or these altcoins rather than investing money into the mining rigs and everything like that. And I said, you can't put a value, and this came up on one of the topics we have on the Bitcoin.Pub was, and I said, you can't put a value to supporting the network. Like if we don't have miners, if there's no one mining, there's nobody supporting the network, there's no one processing those transactions, and so cryptocurrency dies unless you go to like proof of stake or some other form. But this is a way for people to be like, hey, I'm contributing to the network, and I don't have to put my money at risk.
But yeah, I mean, and I'll kind of jump on that too. The way I usually tell people is, if you strip away the even concept of the utility and the functions that it's performing and the service that it's performing, and you look at it just from a monetary standpoint of, if somebody's going to enter a space, especially one that they don't really are familiar with, it is a much more comfortable position to have something tangible and hardware, where if you sit down with somebody and they're going to spend $5,000 in the space, they're like, well, I can buy $5,000 of the coin, but if that coin goes down, I'm screwed. At least I have something, right? So that just natural reaction to gravitate to an object, it doesn't matter what it is, that has some level of resale value, and that kind of doubles down on the fact of GPU mining, because people are like, well, what about ASIC? The GPU minings have a secondary purpose. It has other, value that isn't tied to just cryptocurrency. It has a whole bunch of other. So from from that perspective alone, that's just another one on GPU mining. Like when people say, "Oh, well, GPU mining is going to go away, it's going to go to ASICs," and I'm like, if Ethereum, based on its current growth, came out tomorrow and said, "You know what, we're going to shelf proof of stake. It's just there's too many flaws," I guarantee you, within probably a few weeks, it's nothing as ASIC can hold back ASICs. Nothing ever.
Right,
it doesn't matter what algorithm it is. If it's highly profitable and it looks like it's going to go, they will design. It's essentially going to be a whole bunch of graphics cards that are an ASIC that are at a higher rate that's looking at it specifically. So everything is ASIC resistant, and part of it's also ASIC resistant not because of the technology, it's because of the roadmap that says I am going to invalidate the fact of proof of work mining, and don't waste your time and money fabricating something. We'll just use these things that are already prefabricated and have another solution, right? So by Ethereum for so long, extending that timeline, 7, 10, 12 months ago, somebody's probably kicking themselves saying, we should have just went and made ASICs, because we could, if they extended 18 more months, we could have got that 24 months of runway on this.
So you're thinking Ethereum, Bollick and all them, they said, you know what, let's just make it sound like we're going to come out with proof of stake so that we don't get any ASIC miners on our network.
Yeah.
That's almost what you're bringing up. So like the question I was talking about on the pub is someone asked back in August, and Peter actually revamped this topic. The guy asked the question is, when is mining better than just investing in Bitcoin? So I'm curious, what would your answer be to that? So we did a lot of back and forth on this topic. So while you're thinking about it, we did a lot of back and forth on this topic. And I ended up coming back and saying, what was the original question of this topic? Mm-hmm. It was, when is mining better than just investing in Bitcoin? Mm-hmm. And we were all getting our heads wrapped around, is it better to mine or is it better to invest? So don't get your mind on that. Get your mind on when is it better. So specifically, when do you see mining being better than investing?
So it's a great question. It's a loaded question. I'm going to be super partial to mining to say that mining all the time. I mean, I think mining right now is more attractive than it's ever been because of the fact of so many, that the proliferation of the different currencies and the coins that are out there. And I mean, you can call some of them shit. They're not doing, any real thing besides proof of work. They're not extending any kind of new technology. But you have a barter trade market right now that's being infused with lots of cash, and a lot of people that are not necessarily educating or really even care what the coins are doing, and they're just buying and trading and selling. So right now it looks very good, and I think that's why you see a surge of people really getting into it, especially from the GPU standpoint. But I've always told people, do both if you can, if you have the time and the space to do the mining. Mining is, if for just the traditional funding sense, it's a hedge. So the mining is the hedge. So if something does take a hard turn, I think in the long run it doesn't matter. It's all going to go way, 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 way up. When you look at just the numbers of adoption and the technology, and talking the proof of effort stuff that I was talking about before. So I look at it long term. It doesn't matter. It's all going to go up. But when you look at a short term, that if somebody has to take some risk, and then something happens and they need to exit that risk, the mining is a better way to go, because this week, right now, today, if something happened and you needed to exit that money, I mean, your mining rig is not going to drop 50% in one day or 30% in one day, so you're going to have a better hedge from the hardware side. It does have a depreciation value, but and we had a spreadsheet, I think it's still out there on one of the videos, and I think it's one of my April videos. I'd put a depreciation schedule spreadsheet. for people that were looking at doing it from a larger business scale, and if they wanted to depreciate their equipment, I was showing an 8-month run, essentially running machines 100% for 8 months and depreciating at 40%. You're 60% you're out at 8 months, and you could just recycle your hardware. Put it back on the secondary market, let people buy it, say, hey, it's been mined for 8 months. We've cared and fed for it. Fans were running at 40%. They still look where everything checks out. Save, 40% off of retail and go in, you can trade up. But you're still getting 60%. You would have mined well more than that depreciation, right? And that much time, even in a real kind of, bear market, if the coins were not doing very well. If you look at Ethereum during that period of time, that period of time was March of 16 through, December of 16 looked horrible. It was like it went up to 20 and then it went down to like 5 and 7. And, it's like you were not making profit. If you paid at a premium on GPUs, it wasn't looking good on. But, looking at that spreadsheet, 99 coins. So in March, one rig that was 173 mega hash in March of 16 gave you 99 Ethereum.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing now.
Yeah.
And that's the way I felt with when I got into mining in 2010 with 5870s and 6950s, and I was mining Bitcoin. And, at the time it was still kind of like even more sketchy than it is now from just a profitability, not to exclude the fact that a lot of the world knows about it now. Yeah. It would just from a profitability standpoint was like, this I guess could be cool. But yeah, I would say it's a long way to answer your answer. I think that doing a little bit of both is always a good hedge. I think the mining is still a really good hedge if somebody's not super educated. And then I've been telling a lot of people, if you're going out and you're going to buy crypto, if it's not from Coinbase, if you're going and you want to start doing trading and stuff, and you're going to try to hold your coins, do it with a small incremental amount in the very beginning. Start with $25, $30 against Litecoin or something, move it around, get the understanding of the transactional nature of it between exchanges, and then you're dealing in a small turn, and then you can spend more money into it and just change some decimal places, right? Start with 20, work your way to 200, work your way to 2,000. Because you're in the curve on this stuff, it's not like, oh, I didn't buy yet today, so now I'm screwed. It's like, look at now, right? When it was 19, everybody's like, I'm out. And now I wake up this morning, it's 10,100. I'm like, hey, man, I'm texting everybody's like, it's time to buy. You've been asking me. Here it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's your dip.
Exactly. I've had people that are like, when should I buy? I'm like, there's going to be a correction. Well, I want to get in. I don't want to miss out. I'm like, you're not going to miss out. There's going to be a correction. But go ahead and set up your Coinbase, because there's a period of time when you can't buy yet. You have to wait. And then today, it just went down. So, you can't even buy and sell with a fast time. So you need to go ahead and get in and get ready. At least preload your USD account. Or something, so you can make that transaction right when it comes up. So it's definitely it's definitely scary, I think, for those people that are just getting in too right now, right? Because back when I got in just February of this year. So back when it first came out, or when it first was introduced to me, it was $1,000 a piece. So I was like, okay, I can put a couple $100 into this and I'll be okay if I lose it. But now you're talking just to buy one is $19,000 or was $19,000 or $16,000. You got people that are looking at it going, man, that's a lot of money if I just want one coin. And it drops by $1,000 and they freak out. Everyone freaks out the second you start seeing red, and it's like, do you guys not realize that in a week and a half we doubled? In a week and a half we doubled. So do you not think that there's going to be a correction there?
Yeah. So, people are going to take profit, and there's a lot of, until there's a lot, and I know this is going to sound weird, until there's a lot more liquidity than there is even now. It's at 600 billion. You would think that's a lot, but there's a lot of big institutional money coming in with the CME and the CBOE, and the large school investors that are coming in, and people that have the whales that have been sleeping for a while are coming
Yep.
back up, and there's going to be a lot of movement. It's just mechanically until it gets into such a critical mass, and there's this nice spread to when enough people it hits their number. Some of the people that have been sitting on it for a while, it hits a number, and they're like, you know what, I'm out for at least half, and you start getting that distribution of coins.
Yep.
And those bigger blocks of coins that are getting purchased for that big money goes over into a cold storage, and then a hedge fund or something gets held up against it until there's enough liquidity, probably $2-3 trillion, to where one guy with $200 million can't swing the market. I think it's going to have ups and downs like that, and people are going to get cold, just shaky feet, and they're going to sell. And like I said, it's one of those things that you go into, you kind of dollar cost average it in.
Yep.
You're going to catch the highs, you're going to catch the dips. You just try to hold as much as you, and don't look at it from if you want to have a day trade account, that's great. Do it with a small amount. Don't do it with your whole lot, because mathematically there are people that are just going to eat that lunch all day long and catch you, and especially like on the alts. I mean, playing the trade with the alts. I mean, if you look at the flip on the alts since June, where Bitcoin took a high rise and everything else, even though they're at all-time highs on dollar versus Bitcoin, if you exited your Bitcoin into the alts in June and July, you got murdered. I mean, you're down 80% still.
Yeah.
I mean, there was Ripple. Yeah, great. It's $1.20, but it's at 7,000 satoshis, right? It was at 14,000 satoshis, right? So it's still it needs to be $1.90 to be where it was in June if you were trading your Bitcoin in June for Ripple.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I mean that's the funny thing is I've had people that are like, "What do you think about Ripple?" Like they'll come to me, "What do you think about Ripple?" I'm like, "Look, I bought Ripple when it was like 5 cents per Ripple, okay? And you know what happened in that time that I held that 5 cents per Ripple? Bitcoin doubled and then tripled and then quadrupled, and then all that profit that I thought I had, no, I didn't have any profit. I was actually losing money on Ripple by holding it long term. So I got rid of my Ripple, and I said it's not growing fast enough. If it doesn't grow, if it's not going to grow fast enough to keep up with Ripple or to keep up with Bitcoin, then I'm not going to keep it. Yeah. So I ended up just cashing out. Just exiting out.
Yeah, exiting the position.
But I mean, now it's up so high that that I don't know what would have happened if I would have held it. I guess I could go back into my Bittrex account and check and see what happened, but I don't know. So
yeah, I mean it's down, and I mean it's starting to close the gap on where it was Satoshi wise. But I mean I just look at that Bitcoin to the altcoin exchange, and if you were in Bitcoin, I mean, so if you're mining and you're earning a currency and you're earning it, and then if you don't sell it, then it's really not necessarily a net loss. You had opportunities that you could have sold it for more Bitcoin, which with Bitcoin rising like what it did, it would have been a better play. But most of all the currency, that's kind of been the story of currencies in general. I mean, for the longest time, it's been the reverse flip. If you look at my old Feathercoin that I had. I mean, I had tons and tons of Feathercoin because that's what we used to mine Feathercoin, Dogecoin, Litecoin, when Bitcoin was really switching heavy over to the miners and the FPGAs and the Avalons and all that stuff that was coming out in late November of 13, when I was doing just all GPU mining at the time on Scripton. When I look at the price of Feathercoin at the time, it was like 9 cents, but Bitcoin was 370. It pumped up 370, and then it went back down to like 150. Well, that 9 cents to 150 was a huge amount of Satoshi difference than where Feathercoin's right now at like 43 cents. And it's like way all-time highs in USD, but it's worth pennies compared to where it used to be. But, it's like, the folks that were mining nice hash, even with the fees and getting Bitcoin, were actually doing very well. So there is something to be said for mining for just Bitcoin.
We were actually running nice hash during the hack period. We were actually trying it out, testing out some data, because Peter's all about data. He's like, "Are we making a profit?" Yes. Okay, I don't care what the profit is. I want the data. He wants the data. And so we were mining nice hash, and We were doing good, and then all of a sudden it was like I had someone at work come up to me and go, "Hey, did you know that NiceHash got hacked?" I'm like, "Wait, what?" I have computers mining NiceHash right or for NiceHash right now, and so I had to run into the office and reprogram it for a different coin, and that's what happened. Yo, Peter's on the stream in the chat. It looks like at least.
Sweet.
So,
What's
but
up?
so yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see about that hack. I mean, what do you think about the hack? What do you think about where NiceHash can go? What they should do to kind of to help themselves here?
Well, I think it comes down to what was their OPSEC and how is it impacted? Anybody that's doing any kind of proxy service and exchange that has a hot wallet is always susceptible to not just a direct hack on their wallet from an external standpoint, but they have internal issues too. I mean, there's why, when you look at facilities that if you're going to set up a business and you're going to have customer funds, just like if you're setting up a corporate business and you're going to have PII information, personally identified information for people's credit card information, all that kind of stuff, your OPSEC will has to protect from the computer side and the internal side. Somebody come in there and knew that where NiceHash's offices are. I don't think they've disclosed what the penetration was. But if somebody walked in there and was delivering something and slipped a USB into one of their network machines and then now infiltrated their network, it's that whole pin testing thing. I think if anybody gets into that kind of business where you're going to facilitate customer funds, especially when it comes to crypto where there's no take back skis if it gets stolen, right? You're going to have some level of OPSEC in there to where your keyed entries, you're checking everybody's badges. You need to be at a level of almost a DoD type of level, just because somebody could come in there and infiltrate it, even no matter how well your security is, and then get access to those keys the second, because they have a key logger set on there and they set a back door, they come in, and then now they have access to a hot wallet because they go and have, we don't know how NiceHash was handling their distribution, but if they had like some kind of built-in API system that was running local on their server that would go and make a call to that wallet and then distribute funds through a scheduler versus having some kind of smart contract, nobody knows how they were doing it. If it was all above border code to where it was just executing a command and then it had to send that private key to acknowledge the transfer of those funds, maybe they swept it that way and then they could just make the execution. Bottom line, it was anybody that's doing that kind of stuff needs to have some serious look at OPSEC and just look at all these different places that keep getting hacked. I think somebody, if you do get hacked, sharing the gaps with the community is key. Yeah. I think it would be very advantageous for NiceHash's, just PR and all that to say, hey, this sucks and we're working on a plan to pay everybody back, but here's what went wrong. Here's how we were impacted. And if it is like embarrassing, like, our doors were open and, some dude slipped in and, pen tested us and got, access to the systems, and that's where we think the fault was. They need to highlight that fault and then let the community know, learn from it, I
know that they did a Facebook live stream where they kind of talked about, yes, they did get hacked, and and there's something about the person got in through one other person's login and was able to do whatever he wanted because of that person's credentials. And I know that they've announced also that they're going to refund everyone their money that was in their wallet. And they've also announced that if you were mining during that period, you can, whatever you had mined up to that point, up to being hacked, they're going to give you that money. I checked it for Peter and and Peter, I looked at it, and they're going to give us what we mined, and by I think January 31st of next year. So I think that's good. I think that they, I think by being transparent on Facebook with their people, and then saying, look, yes, we're going to issue your refund, or we're going to issue refunds to everyone, whatever you had in the wallet, and even whatever you mined. I think that's great PR. I don't think you can. I don't know how you could do better if you're going to give people back what was stolen from you. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and to me, this was like a life lesson, right? So if you were mining to the NiceHash wallet instead of mining to an external wallet, and you left your money in that NiceHash wallet instead of pulling it off network and holding it for yourself, I think that's the whole reason why we have what we have.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole reason
Yep.
for the network, is so that you hold that personal key so that
Mm-hmm.
nobody else does. And I think that's one thing that as we get further and further uh, down the rabbit hole of
Mm-hmm.
cryptocurrencies, I think we lose sight of some of those key elements of why we got into
Mm-hmm.
crypto in the first place. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah,
fact
I mean
that
the distribution.
yeah, the fact that if you take your money and you give it to the bank, you literally give it to the bank, you give it to the bank and you tell them, hey, hold on to my money. They take your money and they distribute it out for loans. So
Mm-hmm.
they're using your money to make
Mm-hmm.
more money. So
Mm-hmm.
by you taking it off network, by you taking your Bitcoin or whatever coin you have and pulling it onto your own wallet, you're not letting anyone use your money except for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what it's all about. That's one of the fundamental things, I believe. I believe that's one of the fundamental things about cryptocurrency, that you own that key.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, you have control. I mean, so it's kind of a double-edged sword too.
Yes.
And that's why I like seeing Dash and some of the other cryptos, and EOS is anybody that's been following EOS and their technology with being able to recover account recovery, and then causing essentially a time delay in any activity. Having a trigger to where if something you are going to omit the rapidity of the service with a time delay for you can react to if something happens,
Right.
right? So if and I think that's great for EOS, and that's great for Dan and those guys that are working on that to create that kind of mechanism, because other communities of BSB and open source could, there's no reason why Ethereum, there's no reason why any of these other currencies couldn't look at that tech in general and find a smart contract version of that they could implement to where you can have a protection. Like, so if NiceHash got hacked and you had this massive trigger, you could set a threshold in the smart contract to say, hey, that's a lot of money, and this needs to go through a peer review before this kicks off, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like a counter, like it's like one of these like freeware things that make you wait to hit the button, right? It's like it's been under our nose the whole time of a good feature to put into crypto, and a time delay is a real good one when it comes to large currency transfers or even microcurrency transfers. Because as long as your auditability is good enough, you could see like, hey, this ain't checking out. It's 40 miners, these many payments. Hey, somebody's taken some of the currency in each transaction, kind of like the transaction malleability stuff with like Mt. Gox, where it's like, oh, we think everything's good, and then, oh my God, we've been getting screwed this whole time, and it's having some kind of traceability and auditability. I mean, it's just more focus for those things. I mean, the banks. I kind of touched on it last night with the banks and the live stream that I had with. Talking. I was actually doing a live stream with some of the technology that just came out with a new case and stuff, and I went into this Ask Me Anything piece last night for a little bit, and I started talking about them. So really surprised the banks aren't evolving into this. I mean, I can see a vision where we walk into a bank and it's like you're just walked into like a sports betting place almost, with little tickers of what the currencies are, and I can buy and sell and trade, and I can hold cold storage and use some of those hardened facilities to store some of the stuff, that my OPSEC here, in a house or where I'm at, and if I have like 8 different versions of my key, I don't want to have that even with the hardware wallet. Like maybe some of that stuff I want to make sure is secure outside of it's a personal preference, but it's just not all in your brain or on one little device that if you lose the seed to, you're like, oh, crap. The penalty for failure is very rough right now with crypto, and that's part of it. So it's holding it back. But the people are starting to get better. What EOS is doing, I think, is a good vision of the future.
I was surprised by my EOS investment. I had bought a long time ago and like just forgot about it, and then I looked the other day and I was like, I'm up like 9x.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's EOS could be one of those things that it could be like an Ethereum level of value, where it's there's a lot more EOS, I think, outstanding right now. So the market cap. So I mean, you're probably looking more at a $40-$50, and it would be almost at the market cap, I believe. I'd have to look at the math on it, but I think because I think it's like a 12th or 13th on the market cap right now at $12. So if it went to like 30, it'd be up there in the top 5. But looking at what that team's doing and what they're trying to innovate, and they're bridging on 2 successful implementations of blockchain tech, especially with the Steemit being the DApp that it is. A lot of people don't understand that Steemit itself is a blockchain explorer. That thing is not sitting on an Apache web server. It's not a front end web server that's just calling things. That is an actual blockchain implementation, looking and feeling and breathing like a website. The whole thing is essentially like you go to blockchain.info and all you see is the Bitcoin transactions, just the actual transaction nature. That whole Steemit is an actual working decentralized application that has all of its ecosystem built into it. So you take that and you augment it to now just a generalized platform stack for development that people can put other things on top of it. That's the power of EOS. That's been what Ethereum has been touting for a long time, but more in nested contracts that have a lot of things to get fixed. But we're looking at now that second and third generation of crypto, which is great. I'm really interested in the 4th and 5th generation of it, when you start really looking at deep learning and AI kind of stuff getting into it, and then the proof of effort stuff, distributed, processing, Augur and Golem, and all of those starting to actually function and work. Because it's going to just expand. I mean, it's amazing.
So Peter's asking, are you bullish on EOS?
I'm extremely bullish on EOS. I think that it's going to be. I think it's going to be the next. It's going to be up there with Ethereum and all that. I mean, Dan Lerner has proven it. I mean, he's proven it.
Are you going to say, like, I know that they put out a long time ago that they're going to be the Ethereum killer?
I think they'll augment each other. The thing with I don't think could kill Ethereum, simply for the fact that I think they're going to coexist. The same as, no matter how hard Roger pushes on Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash are both going to serve a purpose of some sort, and they're both going to coexist, agnostic to the marketing and everything else. Because quite frankly, it's going to outlive all of us, right? I mean, this stuff's going to continue to go on, and our kids, and going to be using it. So, no matter what the marketing mantra is right now of any of it, the technology and the functions that they're implementing. I mean, if you look at all of the ERC20 coins are based off of Ethereum, right? They use Ethereum gas to transact. If Ethereum goes nowhere, then just doing that is serving a function. It's serving a function of a layer 2 of the other coins that are on there that are building smart contracts and other features. And it's just going to be used as a gas station at the end of the day. It's just going to sit there at this level, and then the rest of everything else is going to be running on top. And Ethereum essentially is just the baseline platform. And at a minimum set, it'll just do that for the rest of its life. And that makes it like OPEC, I guess, from a fuel station standpoint, that it's, it fuels all the other smart contracts and the apps, and that's what it does. But EOS is taking it another step further with a lot more advanced features, allowing you to do not just all your stuff wrapped up in a smart contract. It's actually doing other application development. I'd call it Gen 3 stuff. IOTA is a Gen 3 type of coin with IoT stuff. With the whole zero fee transfer stuff, you got EOS as a kind of a Gen 3. And then you look at stuff that, like, large companies, like you got Microsoft, they're making a bridge with a few different coins right now, and they're creating things called cryptlets, which are like functional pieces of code that can help translate old world, new world, legacy systems over to blockchain stuff. And that kind of stuff will still use that transactional nature, the Byzantine fault tolerance, to be able to transact and be proofed, and that kind of stuff. So I think, as the companies make contributions to it, large companies, and they're doing it from an open source standpoint. I mean, they haven't fully released, which the cryptlet thing I was just talking about is, if you look up Microsoft Cocoa, that's its code name. But at the end of the day, it's just a functional feature set that then could be augmented with, and picked up by a cryptocurrency.
Right. So let's get back onto, like, I want to learn more about, like, bite size or BitsBeTrippin. Like, where
Yeah,
did you guys start? Like, it looks like you guys are. I think your wife said you guys are in your basement in
yeah.
your own
So we're
house.
still, yeah, we still. This has been the kind of the start. Was I got into I saw the actual Bitcoin white paper and the discussion on something I was actually researching for work when it came to cryptography, in like early 2010, and I kind of caught it in mid 2010 again, and I actually finally read the white paper, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is some pretty powerful stuff," and found my way to Slush's Pool, which had just started, and read their kind of like, here's how you start, here's how you can download a miner and work it on a CPU. So it was just right on the edge of getting into GPUs when I got into it.
Right.
From Bitcoin, and anybody that's watched our channel a few times, I've always had like 5 to 8 computers in our area. My background's very heavy in like software development and Scrum Master and that whole thing. So building, now I'm a principal solution architect, but when I was doing a lot of development, I would create that ecosystem for our team to come over, after work, we'd game and do all kinds of stuff together and stuff. So I had a lot of computers and a lot of different technology to test some stuff out, servers and that whole thing. So I pulled those down, got it all kind of working, it didn't work on some of the stuff. And, started earning Bitcoin, and it was like, hey, this is kind of cool. And I had it on probably 9 machines for about 3.5 months.
Wow.
In early 2010 on Slush's Pool. And that was, so my original first wallet, a lot of people ask me this, so like when they do the math on it, they're figuring, 8 PCs, 9 PCs that early, that had to be a lot of Bitcoin. It was about 11,000
Wow.
Bitcoin, which is quite a bit of Bitcoin. But the problem is at the time it wasn't worth that much, and there wasn't a lot of people talking about it, but it was this huge vision of what it could be, and it was all in the utility of transaction. That's all it was at the time. And it was heating up everything. I actually burned up one of my graphics cards because I didn't heat control it right. And it was a 57, or I think it was a 7950 or 7970, and it just overheated. And I was like, man, once I lost that, it was like real money, and the Bitcoin wasn't really worth that much. And I'm like, man, I just lost like a $300 graphics card. This sucks. And I stopped mining, and I had moved. We had been finishing our house out, and I moved all my equipment from one side to the other. And then during that time, I had decommissioned a few of the machines. And I remember to this day sitting there thinking, I'm like, do I need to get anything off that hard drive?
Oh no.
Oh, I did have that Bitcoin on there.
Oh
I'm like,
no.
that's not anything. So I did delete that one. So there is at least 11,000 and some change. I can log into my Slush account and see it, but the 11,000 of those coins out there that are dead for good. So that hurts. I mean, when I see the price go to what it is, but I got back in it, 9 months later, and I've been in it since. So I mean, I was still able to get in. I was still able to acquire some more on it. But I've also spent a lot of it, of just part of that activity of kind of following Roger's dream of using it as a trade currency, and then realizing that was a horrible idea on something that is limited supply. I think it's great to be able to transact it, but it's a horrible idea to spend it all the time.
Man, that's a lot of Bitcoin. Your wife's over here saying it hurts a lot.
She kills me all the time about it. She rubs it in.
So okay, so you've got all your mining rigs set up in your house, and that was one of the dreams that Peter and I had. We were in his basement going, yeah, we can put this over here, and we can put this over here, and we can do this. And then we ran into this brick wall that we call electricity.
Yeah.
So I can see in the background there you've got a long electricity strip.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys have to do a lot of upgrading? Like, you're saying all your mining rigs are running out of your guys' basement?
Oh, no. So there's others that are outside of here, yeah, for sure. But the stuff here, the stuff that's only in the house, I mean, the most I've ever had in here was like 13 rigs or so. the house in the area, we're in the St. Louis area. So the Midwest in general, if you get pretty decent plots, they give you 300 amp. They give you 200 amp plus another 100 amp.
Wow.
They figure you're going to put like a pool or something in the back. So basically, it's not bad. You can upgrade that to another 100 amps, so you can have 200 amp, 200 amps in the house, which a lot of places in the country you can't do that. They'll let you have 200 amp, and maybe if you have a large enough place, they'll put another 100 amp somewhere else in the house for you. But that allowed us to break out to another box and then go with some 30 amp connections, 240, and then switch it over to the PDUs, the power distribution units that you see back there, which allow you to go to 240. And like a normal APC PDU like that, will let you have roughly 7-8 rigs of the newer rigs, the RX 570s and all that kind of stuff. Don't use the power like the R9 290s and all that used. I mean, I could use 3 rigs then, because that was 1,600 to 2,000 watts of power on some of those older rigs. So that brick only, or that power strip will only do 5,700 watts, and that's maxed out. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to.
That's one of the things we always talk about that I've expressed on the pub, is that there's people that are out there like, oh, I'm going to build a mining rig and I'm going to put it in my house, and I'm like, you guys really need to understand that whatever you're running on that circuit, it's cumulative, right? Because a lot of those things are running in series, not parallel, but in series. So the lights you're running and stuff like that, you really need to check and make sure that you're not going over your amperage and getting ready to start a fire in your house.
Oh, yeah.
And so Peter and I, we run our mining operation is in an external office. Mm-hmm. So Peter was like, what do you want to do? I said, look, let's just get an office. Neither one of us want to put this thing in our house. Especially if we're going to go as large as we want to go. So we ended up moving into this office here, and I can walk you guys around it a little bit later. But it's a shared community office, so we've got other people that are here too. And so the good part about that is that we have people that are in and out, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not just our computer sitting here and somebody noticing that nobody ever comes in and out of this door, right?
Yeah.
And the people that are in here are like real estate agents. So. Yeah. And so we moved in here, and the first thing I said was, I need to look at the electrical box. I need to see if you guys have enough room for me to put what I need to put in here. Mm-hmm. So I called my electrician out. He came with me, and we just looked at the box. I told him what our loads were going to be, and he said, yeah, I can do it. And luckily, the box, so we have the wall, right? The box is on this side, and our office is on this side. So all he had to do was straight through, and it was super easy. He installed it in a couple hours, and we were good to go. We had our electricity in here, and so Peter and I then like the whole reason why people were asking us to stream or to do a live stream with you guys is because you were talking about your the Scrum training and everything. And Peter and I went through that similar exercise, because Peter's a certified Scrum trainer, and so. So we had gone through that exercise about how many rigs do we want to put, how much money is it going to cost, what's what's the risk involved, and so we had settled on 10 rigs. Mm-hmm. So we settled on 10. We wanted to be able to expand to 12. I had built a prototype, because Peter was like, you say you can build it. You say you can build it. Can you really build it? And can it do what you say it's going to do? Mm-hmm. And so I built one back when you could actually buy RX 480s for like $200 a piece.
Oh, yeah.
And so I built one, and we ran it for a couple months, and then he said, yep, let's go bigger. So, so we ended up moving into the office, getting everything installed. I spent a couple months, or about a month in here, just trying to get everything installed because I work full time. I'm not a computer engineer. I'm not a software engineer. I'm a civil engineer. Mm-hmm. So just building computers was like a hobby for me.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, well, if I can build it, then let's do it.
If I can. Yeah.
So we went in and we built it up, and been running it now since about August. And I mean, we're still loving it. Peter loves the data. Okay, Peter loves the data. I just like that it's still working. That Peter will be like, "How's it going?" And I'm like, "It's good. Everything's working. Everything's humming. Autopilot right now."
Yeah, yeah. It's building that passive income, from that side, and just having that. If you're going long with them and you're not divesting a lot of the coins and stuff, and you're looking at that curve, when you start getting more and more people getting in an adoption standpoint, not just mining. I mean, we try to educate a lot of people. I'd like even more people to mine. I mean, I know it brings down some difficulty, but that one-to-many connection stuff that I was talking about before, I think builds a bigger ecosystem, and then you start having other opportunities and other people of different walks of life and different backgrounds starting to get those gears spinning of like, what, maybe we can do this. And that's how you get some of this innovation, because you start getting all these just different people from different backgrounds. And, reading some of the stuff that I get on email, I mean, we get probably 100, 120 emails a day now. And I take a real strong, honest approach to try to go through and read what I can. So people that watch and read it, I actually pull it into an Access database. I give it a Pareto. I try to respond back to people quickly on it. I'm trying to automate some of it. But, just from a cultural standpoint, since it is worldwide and it affects people differently, seeing that ecosystem that's created from it. And if you have a huge amount of people in a community that's mining crypto and creating it, and then you have an exchange, a localized exchange there, then you'll start to create that kind of ecosystem that it builds that consumer market, where people want to do it. So then, yeah, that what you have is a passive income. You're a producer, and it's kind of cool seeing it because it's tech. I mean, that's why I love the GPU side. People are like, man, why don't you get into ASICs? I'm like, one, they're just the technology evolution of the tech. The producers of those are always going to be ahead, and they're going to put their stuff in. You're going to get second gen of that, so you will get a profit curve. But the GPU hardware is like, there's so many other people that can use it, and it's cool checking out the new hardware. I mean, it's like we got the Titan V, a couple weeks back, and it's not. I mean, you would never buy that for crypto normally, but it's like, I wanted to see what it does in crypto. I like the scientific method side of it. Let's see what it can do, and maybe it'll blow our socks off. Maybe it'll be 300 mega hash, and I'll be like, oh god, this is going to be horrible. For everybody's going to.
That's one of those things too for me is I'll tell Peter, I'm like, hey, we're running a bunch of 1070s. Let's try out a 1080 Ti, and he's like, whoa, let's think about this for a minute, and we're planning on upgrading a bunch of stuff come next year. We want to expand. We want to see what the different GPUs are going to be like. And I've seen some of your videos. You got 1050s out there. You got 1070s. All this stuff. And yeah, like you, it's like, ooh, look at this new shiny thing. What's it do? You can go online all you want. And you can read about, oh, it does this much or it does that much, but that's not the same. It's not the same as actually going and doing it yourself and getting the data for yourself and then seeing the profits behind it all. So you're talking about, you guys built a community. Your wife was saying on here that you guys have been around for a long time. You built a big community around miners. We have a lot of your guys that come onto the Bitcoin.Pub, and they talk about you guys as miners, your mining pools and everything like that. So tell me about the mining pools you guys have.
Yeah, so there's the BBT, the community, and the Discord has really grown since about, I think we finally started it in June of this year, July time. And we have a few pools that kind of have taken up shop in there, that I work with related to, adding them to the multi-miner. And I like having, I think Kibbles is one of the big ones with Hodl Pool, which is a great name. I love the name. But having them in there and then being a witness of, that interaction with if people have issues and Kibbles is there to respond to it, that customer service, which is very, I don't want to say lacking in the crypto space in general, but as somebody that's waiting for Poloniex to still send Litecoin that I sent like 3 days ago. But I mean, having that space in that ecosystem, I wanted to try to create a free space that people could communicate and not get badgered with stuff, ask good questions. And when Kibbles decided to make a mining pool and just get as part of that, you know, I was like, hey, you can set up your support stuff inside of the BitsBeTrippin community. You know, you have a little hold pool space there, and then we can have some people that can help moderate, and then, you know, build that trust in the community that if people, anybody who works in computers, things happen, right?
Yeah.
Things happen, service happens. We all have to deal with it forcibly most of the time. Like I'm trying to log into GDEX and buy something that doesn't work. You know, it's like it happens. So I mean, having that voice and that face to it, to where people can communicate, because sometimes it's just they want to get it off their chest and be like, this sucks and here's why. I'm like, that sounds like a requirement. Let me see if we can get something changed. That's kind of more the Scrum Master piece coming out of it, where, you know, the whole point of it is to block and tackle, hear things, and then find solutions, you know, for people. But having the hodl pool in there is good, and, you know, he's added some other, you know, currencies that are, you know, I think Expanse and Hush, and there's a few other ones in there that that they've added. But, you know, hodl's the only one right now that's in there that's in our Discord channel. But I mean, if you look at the multi-miner that we put together, it has, you know, there's 29 different currencies. There's 14, 15 different pools in there that, you know, Nanopool and all, Supernova.cc, you know, some of the other bigger ones. But I've tried to create that kind of just the common space, you know, and it's great that you guys are creating one too. I mean, that's, I think let's get more people talking about it. And, you know, because when we came into that space and I looked at it, the whole reason, to kind of go back to where BitsBeTrippin came from, was my background being in the IT and the tech and leading teams and doing, you know, large projects and stuff. I'm like, there is not a community center. I mean, there's Bitcoin Talk, you know, Bitcoin Talk forums. There's, you know, ETH forum started in September of 15, and, you know, there's these like I call them kind of contextual communities, and it's really hard, especially for new people, to go in and try to understand, you know, syntax on a miner, you know, like what? I don't get it. Is that a space before that dash? You know, so creating, I saw the need, and I'm not, you know, I never had a YouTube. I mean, I game and do like anybody else, but I mean, it wasn't. I was like, you know what? I'll create one, but if we're gonna do it, let's put a kind of a cool name to it. And you know, I have a couple of the guys that I worked with that have, you know, good experience with like graphics and marketing and all that kind of thing. So, you know, we put together some pretty cool logos, put together a tagline, you know, educating one bit at a time, that kind of thing. And, you know, did the big marketing kind of thing behind it, just to give it presence for people. But it was really just to facilitate. There was no hidden agenda. There was nothing. We don't have any ties with any companies or anything like that. I don't get free stuff. There's only one thing I've ever gotten for free, and I'm looking for it. It's a little hard drive duplicator thing. And there's a little story with that from the company that sent it, because we used it on one of our videos, and like all the affiliate links that go back to Amazon for it, there were so many of them ordered. I guess I was like their top seller on Amazon, or their top affiliate on Amazon. They're like, how are you getting all of these sold? It was like anybody that was building a lot of mining rigs was using that duplicator, because it just saves so much time. And they're like, can we send you the latest version? I'm like, sure. You're the first company, believe it or not, that's ever wanted to send us anything.
I would have loved to have one of those. We actually, I had a friend of mine who used to run data centers, and he was like, I was telling him about it, you know, hey, I'm setting up all these miners, and he was like, well, do you have a duplicator? And I was like, no. He's like, I got a program. Don't worry, I'll come by and we'll get you all set up. I was like, great. He came by. We spent about 2 hours, and he was like, you know, I haven't run this program in about a year or so, and it didn't work. And I ended up having to install every single thing one by one. And I was like, you know, if Peter said to me tomorrow, we're going to 50 rigs, I would tell him we're going to invest in a duplicator. Hands down.
Yeah, this thing's $30, so it's worth every penny. And it's a very simple thing, and it both works with the bigger, you know, 3.5 drives and the 2.5 smaller SATA drives. But yeah, I just happened to get it because we started doing a lot of different rigs and different builds. But the motherboards, the main thing with those type of things are, as long as you're using pretty much the same motherboards, it's really agnostic to the cards. Once you have all that kind of set up, you could just duplicate it. And it was totally worth it, and it was just that funny kind of thing where they came back and wanted to send us one. But it's those kind of things where we just, that's why you see all the different types of cards. A lot of people ask us questions with that of like, why don't you just go with the one? I'm like, one, you can't find, like, let's say I found the best card in the world. The second I say this is your best, you're never going to be able to buy it because it's going to be sold out right away. So having that range and giving people options, and then even getting into like the 1050 Ti's or getting into the, like we did a long time ago in 2014, R7 240s, because at the time script was the power and the cost wasn't really worth it. The profitability was way, way, way down. Where the profitability is now, people don't know what the old days of mining were. It was horrible, right? I mean, you were happy to get 80 cents a day. I'm not kidding, wow. Right? So it was like, maybe one day this stuff might be worth something. Little do we know.
Yeah.
But, if it was all about power saving. So we went into like R7 240s, which were like these little like thin cards that were made for, they magically had HDMI and were made for like home theater PCs, right? But they did script pretty decently, and they used like 15 watts at the time when you had cards that were using 275 watts. That was like night and day. So, but I mean, having that range kind of sparked that idea of like, wow, maybe this is kind of like a review thing, but allows us to see what does work.
Yeah.
And, that was all kind of, that's when I say, I did that early Bitcoin mining. Well, when Newegg and everybody started opening access to it, that's what I was using. I was using my own proceeds, and I've always continued to use my own proceeds by and large. I mean, there are people have been recently starting since like June, starting to donate, and we pick up different pieces of equipment for the channel. I put all of it right back in. My wife would attest to that. She's like, "What are you doing?" When I'm buying new equipment and stuff for in here, to different lights and cameras and stuff. But I try to make that to give the presentation a little better. So we do use those funds for that. But most of this just comes from our, I call it the fam pocket now, because of the folks that are all part of, I'd call it the BBT fam, that have, we have all made, just like you and Peter, we've made different investments to have larger facility and all that kind of stuff, and all have put our funds into that to grow. But all of the kind of weird off-card setups and stuff like that, those different painted rigs and stuff that we do, all of that stuff is just stuff that I put together to see what it does, and then hopefully helps educate the community. Figuring that investment, this is my investment back into the community, that if crypto space gets large enough and all of that stuff does raise, that the hedged bet that I have with larger mining facility and investments, and that if that gains in value, then that was just my way of helping the community grow and be educated and help get people into the awareness of it. Because I mean, I think it's like everybody gets into those conversations on like CNBC and like, what gives it value? Oh, it's because people say it's value. I'm like, well, yes, but it's also utility.
Yeah.
And a utility has its own intrinsic value, because if you stripped away all the cost, people are still going to transfer stuff. It's not like if you strip all the value out of $1, I'm going to do nothing but with it besides burn it, maybe for fuel. That's the only utility it has. So I mean, there is a utility in this, and if you have anybody in your audience or in my audience too that get cornered this Christmas and say, I just don't understand how it has any difference. I mean, the obviously go-to argument is no different than gold and cash, but with the added benefit that it mechanically has a huge function with it, with being able to store value, transfer value across lines without anybody. And I always use the same use case. When I go to Micro Center or I go any kind of brick and mortar store to buy stuff, when you start buying at volume, especially like when I was able to buy at volume and anybody else was able to buy at volume at Micro Center before they kind of cut
before the 2 GPU limit?
Yeah, before the 2 GPU limit. It was like an event to spend money.
Yeah.
Like I would try to like, okay, here's the Amex, I know it's got more than enough on it, and it's like, oh, you got to call them. Oh, well, why are you buying it? It's like they're asking questions. I'm like, dude, it's my money. I pay you off all the time.
Yeah.
Why do we have this conversation every time we're here again? If having the utility of crypto and like Apple Pay, You know, everybody's like, "Oh, Apple Pay is great. It's the same as crypto." I'm like, "No, it isn't," because I still have to ask a freaking question if I can use it.
Yeah.
If I had crypto and I went ding with it and it just got transferred to them, and the second it got verified, I'm good.
Yeah.
There's no take back keys.
Yeah.
You know, there's no validation point. So that's the utility. That's the argument that I tell people to use, is that if they say from a convenience standpoint, don't get confused on the technology of something like Apple Pay or any of these other what looks like a mimic of technology, because in reality it's still going through a business process somewhere in a system to validate if it's you from an identification standpoint, because they have to do the, you know, is this person spending $5,000? Is it really them? Let's stop the transaction and make them call us. Yeah. You know, you're getting all of those steps in play, where in the crypto it is, if you have that private key and it's on your Jack's wallet and you want to make that transaction, it's done. Yeah. You know,
you don't have this year I've had my debit card number stolen twice. And last year I had it stolen 3 times. And I don't know what it is. Like, it sits in my wallet. Like, why? How come someone can walk by my ass and be like, whoop, I got his card number. Let me go to GameStop and buy a freaking PS4. Mm-hmm. You know, and I get it. Like I don't know if you saw this or not, but Peter was actually hacked about end of November or so. He was actually hacked, where they actually took over his phone.
Oh, so, wow. Oh yeah, where they do you got to call the phones and make sure that they can't port it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a lot of issues there. So there's still that vulnerability there. Like, you know, there's still a ways to go, right? So, but for me, like, people will say, like, how do I even use it? Mm-hmm. And I tell them, I say, well, do you, like you were saying, don't compare it to Apple Pay, but I do. I say, have you ever used Apple Pay? And they're like, oh yeah, I use Apple Pay all the time. I'm like, basically the same.
Yeah.
It's basically as easy.
From the physical action, yes. When my reference to it was more of when I go to interact with it with a business, the things that happen after that from a transactional nature is completely different. And because it's going through third-party verification, it's going through all this other OPSEC stuff that it has to. And it's not that it's ill-functional. They have to do that mechanically because it's protecting you, because it is a very imperfect system that could have somebody that did exactly what you were just talking about, where they gained access to your credentials and your IDs and your, you know, Apple Pay code, if they ported the phone, brought over the keys with it, and then were able to do that. So they have to have those in place. And why it's a super inconvenience right now, that's just kind of what I'm standing there in Micro Center sometimes, and not recently because of the 2 GB limit, but you know, and it's just like, God, this would be so much easier if you took like Dash or something, because I could just go, ding, are we good? Okay, let's go. And, you know, it's done. But I mean, I understand it's one of the places of being in my day job of understanding architecturally what's going on in the background, to understand that we're still pretty far away from that. And it's not from the mechanical standpoint that it couldn't happen. It is because of all the other regulatory stuff that have to get in place from a standpoint of, you know, just if you're spending that kind of thing and they don't know that you, and then now how do you pay tax on that and all that kind of stuff, that there needs to be an evolution. I mean, I'm not talking the most recent sign tax thing that just happened, but there needs to be an evolution on the way that kind of stuff works to make it work with, you know, local municipalities and different governments. It's not just the governments of the U.S. taking money with taxes and all that. And there's going to be huge amounts of libertarian arguments on this of taxes, the worst thing ever. And I'm like, some of it is like anybody that has kids in school, that's where your tax goes. There's definitely bad shit that I don't agree with that they spend it, but there needs to be a more seamless mechanism that interacts those services that we all use, regardless if we don't think that we need them or not, that need to be funded. That's the way they're funded. So there needs to be some kind of mechanism that makes that. So if we were using Dash, that there's a transactional kind of smart contract in the background that kind of, you know, does the divvying up of that. And that kind of infrastructure, you know, so if I put the architect hat in, that stuff's being built on. That stuff's being worked on right now. So it's that's what gives me a real strong push towards crypto, or towards the technology in general of Bitcoin and the technology of blockchain in general. But is it going to be facilitated in the current cryptos? I think it's going to be an evolution of those in some capacity. It does not take away though the values of the stuff that are here now. I mean,
Right.
from a store value standpoint, I think people are still going to continue that for eternity. When it comes to the crypto space that's current, I think that list will get shorter. I have no doubt when it comes to the proliferation of the current Gen 1 tech that has been forked. So all these little altcoins that are all based on Bitcoin or all based on the first iteration of Ethereum, they're going to have to evolve too in some capacity. But that's why I'm myself, and I know a lot of other people that talk, especially some of the TA folks that are more technical on the trade analysis side with regards to tying it to the tech of seeing, well, here's their roadmap and here's what they're trying to do. They're giving value added. When you see a roadmap, and that's kind of that Scrum Master hat on, when you see somebody throw out a roadmap and they've accomplished at least one or two of those tasks, that's progress, right? That's that whole, and anybody that knows anything to do with running a company or building a business or producing a product, it's all about cost, schedule, and performance. Cost, what's my burn? That's what the ICO gave you funds to do stuff. What are you doing with them? Yeah. What's your schedule? Throw me a dash. Throw me here's the 5 things I want to do. 4 of them don't exist, and it's probably going to never happen. But we're going to try our ass off to do that because you gave us money to do that, and then show the performance, which is what do I get? What are we getting for that investment? And as like IOTA and a few of these other ones that are starting to show progress on stuff, I think it's going to just make, it's like it starts to treat some of those things like securities or shares in a stock, and you're just like, I want more because I believe in it. And you're at a minimum set, you'll have that. Not to be confused with some of the coins that are going to be consumption based, where you use the token as a consumption mechanism, to fuel the system, like Ethereum. Ethereum, regardless of any of it, is a fuel. To do ICOs, to do transactions, CryptoKitties, whatever you want to do with it, it requires Ethereum. It is a fuel, like it or not. It needs to be used. I mean, that's why I was going back and forth with Richard Hart, and I had a live stream with him. I don't know if you know Richard Hart or follow Richard Hart. Highly recommend watching some of his videos. He's really he's a great believer in Bitcoin and promoter of Bitcoin and the technology and stuff. But but he's super anti-mining. He's like, it's a big waste of time. Don't waste your time with it. But I wanted to debate with him. I'm like, come on, let's do this, because I believe it builds communities and it grows one-to-many connections. And I think we kind of agreed to disagree on some stuff, but I think he understood kind of my perspective on it. But that's one of his big points is on the from the store value, and it's just always going to grow. It's limited supply, and I mean it's a no-brainer that it's going to go up. There's so much, don't get caught up in all the crazy trade analysis. Yeah. Total,
just hold. That's right. That's all I said today. People came by my desk today at work, and they're like, Chris, it's down $5,000. What do I do? I'm like,
buy opportunity.
Buy more?
Yeah.
Hold what you have and buy more. They're like, but what if I sell it and then I buy back less? And I'm like, you mean like swing trading? Yeah. I was like, are you an expert swing trader? Because I think you're an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm an electrical engineer. Well, do you know how to swing trade? No. Then don't.
Yeah, and if you look at my video from last night, there was a guy that made a comment, because I made a comment about not getting all caught up in the trade analysis, folks, and not to diminish any of the guys that are trying to do honest, good work of just provide free technical analysis based on their background and experience, being traders at some point in their lives, probably licensed traders, and on the New York Stock Exchange, or if it's just their side thing that they're wanting to do because they know about it from school. But I'm like, unless you eat, breathe, live it, and you catch every indicator because that's what you're doing, you're going to catch microcosms of it, and you're going to make a good play, but you're going to get burned in the long run if you're not keeping up with it.
Yep.
Because it isn't let's do awesome stuff for 5, 10, 20 minutes or 2 weeks and then fall off the bridge for a week or two because you're going to get burned,
Yeah.
in these swings, or you're just a long-term hodl, now, because now you've gotten yourself into a position. And that's why I've always told people, I'm like, you can hedge a little bit in mining or do a dollar cost average, which just means if you're going to spend $5,000, split that over 25 weeks, do $125 every Friday, and you're going to catch highs, you're going to catch lows. You're not going to. There's an argument to say, well, I bought 5,000 now, it might be worth here, but I'm like, yeah, but it could be here at that point in time if you take a snapshot. Where at least dollar cost averaging is the thing that's always happened, and you kind of win-win.
Yeah, and the way I see it is, our electric bill is Peter's way of dollar cost averaging.
Yep.
That's how I look at it. I say, we do all of our profit taking and all that, and I say, all right, here's the electric bill, and that's I pitched that to Peter, like, hey, this is your dollar cost averaging, and Peter is that trade guy. I mean, that's where his YouTube page came from. He is the guy that goes through and gives you the no bullshit. This is my trade analysis. Now, he's not going to be like, I think you should buy, I think you should do this. He's not a financial advisor. So we had to throw those disclaimers out there. We're just basically saying this is the information, or he's basically saying this is the information. Take it for what it's worth. If you like me, if you think it's a good analysis and you want to buy, hey, that's on you. That's not on me. That's on you. And that's what the community he builds around. And that's what we're trying to build here at like the Bitcoin.Pub. And so he's actually started this B90X. He started this B90X program a long time ago, and I know he's put a lot of work into it. And it's kind of interesting to see. Like, I mean, he's put a lot of effort into it, and I don't know how many people actually kept up with it, but he gives you some real good information about trading, how to trade, and how to be diligent and put stuff aside, and it's a great tool on the Bitcoin.Pub, and that's really where he came from. When he was casting the vision of starting this forum, he was coming to me and saying, Chris, this is what I want to do. I want to build a community. Originally it started, we wanted to build a community just in our backyard, like in Atlanta. And we came back, he came back and said, you know what, I started a pub. And I'm like, oh, you did? He said, yeah, my brother and I, we just went ahead and we did it. And that's the thing about Peter is he gets an idea, he goes. He doesn't wait. He doesn't go. He just executes. Let's just see. And if it fails, it fails.
Iterate it, yeah.
But it will fail epically either way, And so he created the pub, and he said, Christian, I created the pub. I know you and I are doing the mining thing, but we got the pub that we got to think of now too. And I said, let me be the leader of the mining and hardware section. Let me just take that under my wing. Let me offer what I've learned, right, from building our rigs and mining and stuff like that. Let me build something there. Let me build our mining community, because all of his YouTube is about trading and not so much about the mining. And so I said, so let me just take that part over. So I've been, trying to build up the mining community, doing tutorials, doing things like that. And and one day I said, it'd be real awesome is if we did a live stream, let's build a rig together type thing. And we also have a Patreon page. So he wanted to open that up. Again, that's one of those experiments, right? So we opened that up just to the Patreon, and then we released it later on BiteSizeBitcoin. But we had a lot of good feedback from that, and there was a lot of good data that we got back from that. And I said, you know what? I think I just want to start my own YouTube page. I want to see what I can do. I'm not a public speaker. I'm an engineer. Usually most of us are like pretty bad at talking, but let me just try it. And so that's what I'm trying to do now. And
that's how you get better.
For me, it's really hard. Yeah. For me, it's really hard because I have two kids that are 6 and 16 months. And,
16 months.
So it's really hard because I have to find times of the day that it's not super loud in my house. And I'm like, okay, so what time is that? Well, that's bedtime.
Oh yeah.
And then it's like, well, okay, so that's bedtime. So I gotta wait until 8 o'clock to even try to do a stream. And by that time, I'm like, honey, I just want to go to bed. You
Yeah.
know. And so it's a little difficult for me, but with the Bitcoin Pub, I can jump on there and I can answer people's questions the best I can, and try to share my opinion on a few things. Um, Another question I have for you though is,
Mhm.
how do you feel about cloud mining?
I think it serves a purpose for the people that want to get into mining, but do not have either the space, the time, and want to get. So there's different reasons to mine in general, and we hadn't really even talked to. One of them is people just want to be able to get from the creation side straight to a wallet that is not necessarily because of whatever situation they have. They don't want it known, right? And I think that there's a purpose served, and it isn't necessarily for, like, I would say U.S. residents, but there are countries where, like, that it's not necessarily illegal, but you don't want people. There's certain situations, like I know in Venezuela and stuff, that it's super spectacle. There's a spectacle around it right now because of the hyperinflation that's going on there.
Yeah.
So if they don't want to get on grid because of their particular situation, it serves a purpose to be able to trade and interact and do that kind of stuff. And you're getting it not from a KYC place, right? So I think that there is a facilitation for mining. So that's kind of an overview of mining that includes cloud mining, because that's just another way for you to point a miner to a wallet. So bridging that, I think that is one of the many use cases that people would look at for cloud mining. I think the impact to community. And for us, I mean, it's obviously, if you look at some of the larger miners on the Ethereum network, I think there's a 33% user. That's or a 33% contributor that is close to a third now. Genesis Mining, because that's their core. So you get into that kind of situation where you're going to have this massive entity that could get you into where they're doing most of the mining, and it's more centralized. I'm kind of neutral. I mean, I know Marco. I met him back in 2000. Marco Stringe, which is the owner of Genesis Mining. I met him and a few of the other ones that kind of came and went, including the old Gaw miners. Who was that? I can't think of his name anymore now. But at one of the old events, and we had this kind of debate of how it was going to impact the current existing miners and all that kind of thing. And it just came down to they wanted to be able to facilitate, a requirement, but it's at a pretty high cost. I mean, if you look at the, I mean, they're definitely making margin, but they also have, a pretty high OPSEC potential issue, just like NiceHash had. So there's a huge risk because they're a much larger attack surface.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I think it serves a purpose. I think it has a place. It's always going to be there. I think the reason why you don't see a lot of competitors is because of just what I was saying with the OPSEC side of it. It isn't that mining's difficult. It isn't that people are not wanting to invest a ton. It just comes down to the OPSEC side of it, that where does that hot wallet go, especially if you have multiple investors, and they're going to want their portion of it, and how do you distribute that? Because now who's going to have access to those keys? You start running into those kind of issues, right?
Yeah.
And I look at it from our BB fam of doing our internal mining and, like, how do we distribute it? And are we all going to pool all of our hash power? I mean, how is this going to work? And I'm a super proponent of, like, most all of my stuff is offline. Like, I mine offline wallets. I don't keep anything online. And because I don't try to trade heavily in it right now, because I'm more hodl for the longer term and trying to grow the community. But that's why people ask, like, dude, why don't you just do this full time? It's obviously you got a niche for it. You got a YouTube channel that's starting to grow, and it's just the day job takes care of all the basic necessity needs and stuff. So it allows me the luxury to work mining. If I was to take the day job out of the picture, I would have to, I'd have to get sponsorships or something. I'd have to really scale it up in a different way that I really don't want to. I don't want to call it taint. Not that any kind of marketing or anything that really taints a perspective or viewpoint or anything like that. But it's I like the fact that I'm not necessarily tied to anything, and people know that when they get stuff from us or when we're showing what things do, it is purely from like a scientific like methodology. Like, hey,
Yeah.
you plug this 1080 Ti in, and this is what it gets. There's no incentive value for me to mislead you, right? Like
Right.
in any way. Not saying that I would ever do that or anybody does that. It's just whenever you have that aura about like sponsored by Nvidia. Let's talk about this 1080 Ti. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like they know that, hey, I'm going to Micro Center and buying it with my own dollars, and I want to see what it does, and I want to give them an observe and report, and I want somebody else to communicate back with me saying, hey, dude, I didn't get that when I plugged it in. I'm like, oh, what motherboard are you using, or what are you using for this? And then we get this huge ecosystem and this big database of stuff that people can be and contribute on. So the day job allows me to do that, and then this allows me to grow the channel and stuff like that. But I kind of went off the thing for the cloud mining for me, but I think there's a purpose for it. And it's going to facilitate people that can't really, get into the space, especially in bigger cities. I mean, we get people that call us, send us messages from like New York and stuff. And it's like, hey, I'm in a 300 square foot place. Do you think I can do some mining? And they'll take a picture of their four fuse box that's 415 amps, and I'm like, no, dude. I'm like, that's for your washer. That's for your. I'm like, unless you want to turn off your main necessity things. And they're like, well, is there not any option for me to mine? And I'll refer them sometimes to. I'm like, well, you got Genesis is Marco's running a legit show. I haven't physically went up there. They've asked me to go up there a couple times to Iceland and do kind of a walkthrough, and it's just a matter of scheduling and timing. To try to get. I mean, it's Iceland of all places, right? So it's
it's a beautiful place. I've never been there, but I hear that's the new destination to go to.
Yeah, but I mean, he's a legit player. He goes to the different events. He talks. But he's charging, and it's a higher cost than if you had your own rig mining nice hash, even with their new higher fees. And it's just, but yeah.
So I see your point to it all, and I agree. There's those specific people that don't have the ability, like the people in New York. But one of the things that really turned me off from cloud mining and puts me off when people bring up cloud mining, it really puts me off is the fact that your contract in there says that they're able to change your terms and agreement anytime. They're able to terminate anytime. And it gives them the ability to do what they want, and you have no control over it. And I mean, on the Bitcoin.Pub, man, I mean, one of the largest threads we have is the cloud mining thread. Like, I'm trying to find it right here so you guys can see it on the stream. And I'm surprised it's not at the top with like a new post, because literally I feel like there's a post on it every single day, and it's just full of people talking about their cloud mining experience. And I can actually filter better if I do this. And who's investing in cloud mining right here. So it's got tons and tons and tons of people posting about cloud mining and who's doing it and who's not doing it. And every time I read it, I'm like, oh, like I really don't believe you guys should be cloud mining. If you're gonna mine, buy a mining rig. If you can't do that, invest.
Yeah, invest in it.
Just invest instead, and you'll be better off just investing instead of putting your Bitcoin into someone else's wallet and then them slowly paying you back over the life of the contract. And a lot of the contracts that used to come out were lifetime contracts. But then you looked at those terms and agreements, and it said that they could change it. And people 3 months into their lifetime contract ended up getting an email saying you got 1 year. And then seeing their profits dwindle every single month. They're getting less and less, and that ROI that was 6 months is now 8 months, and then it's 10 months, and then now they don't even know whether or not they're going to make their initial investment back. And to me, it's also you've put this Bitcoin, like you've paid Bitcoin into them to get you started, and the forks, every time it forks, you have now missed out on that fork. You've missed out on Bitcoin Cash. You've missed out on Bitcoin Gold. Whatever the next one is,
Diamond.
Bitcoin, Bitcoin God, or Diamond, whatever else comes out. You've missed out now on those. And so how do you factor that into your ROI, like what you potentially could have made?
Yeah, so I wouldn't. So if at any point, if it's for cloud mining, or if it's like what I was saying in the beginning of the stream, that a little over a year ago, I bought 2 graphics cards for 3.25 Bitcoin, and that is like the $60,000 graphics card almost, right? So it was a horrible decision. I think any decision that makes you part your ways with your Bitcoin at that point is like final sell it. You've made a decision, and that you've omitted any of those things because you spent your Bitcoin. I think for the cloud mining, to respond to their terms of service stuff, I think it's when you go and you read to do that, you're making a decision. You may not. It might be small print, and that you have to read the small print, and that sucks with it. I would say that read anything you're going to get into agreement with. And if I read that, I would, like, personally, I don't have any cloud mining. I mean, I did a review on it in 2014, before I went to Hashers United and talked there. And I've only talked at a couple of the events, but and when I met Marco, and we talked about the facility and what's it cost and how do you structure to where you're not screwing people out of it, but you're taking a huge amount of risk and cost. You're taking the risk of not just the depreciation of the equipment. You have to make your contracts with your facility. You have to make your contracts with your power, all that kind of stuff. But you also have that OPSEC issue. I'm super partial to the OPSEC just because of my background and making sure things are secure. But when you have that, there's a cost of that. Now, charging and getting a margin and how much are they getting, that's a whole thing. And then you got the fact of if you're spending Bitcoin and it appreciates and more people come onto the network, and you got a larger dive and difficulty, which makes your output be less. Your ROI is not being met because you paid such a high entry point, right? To where if you did a rig, you're still having that same curve.
Yeah.
If you built a rig and you bought a mining contract, you're both on that same curve. Your point of entry for what you got was just a lot higher. So that makes your ROI not be as achievable near as quick. Where if you went to put the $2,000, I mean, anybody can do the math on that, right? You go to buy something on the Genesis, and it's like 100 mega hash, like $4,000. You're like, what? I can get 300 mega hash for that, right?
Yeah.
So,
now,
I mean,
definitely now.
Yeah, I mean, but at the time there was still it almost was costing double, right? But it's like, oh, you don't have to do it, and there's this whole thing. It's like, well, it will have to appreciate significantly to the coins that I'm getting as a payout to do that. But I think from a utility, there's a small use case of people that want to get it through a trickle, but if you have the opportunity to build it yourself, it is by far, bar none, the way to do it. But you also, and the other part I would say with mining, it isn't just, and this from building them, you have to care and feed for some of them. If you go one to many on rigs and you go to 10 rigs, you may have 8 that are like the perfect babies, and they're just you got them and they run and they stay cool, and then you got 2 that are your problem child. And it's a statistical math problem on any of the equipment that you have, especially because you're not just one to many on rigs, you're one to many on graphics cards. Or many to one on that particular thing. So now you're talking 60 GPUs. Mm-hmm. What's your statistical chance that all of them are going to work the same and work good, and you're going to have the one that's being the pain in the ass that you got to go fix? So you got
that. That's our firstborn.
Yeah, your firstborn. Yeah, exactly. You got your time commitment on that. And when I did a cost breakdown in March, a video where I was showing, what are all the fees. I try to just lay it out on the table. Here's your time to build a rig. Here's where you point it, and you're going to lose 2%, 1% on whatever pool you're on. When you make that transaction, when they send you something, they're going to take 0.1, 2%, just because of the transaction fees. It's nothing they take; it's the network fee.
Right.
You do all that adding up, you're talking 4.5–5%. Yeah, and then if you want to exchange it immediately on an exchange, you're losing maybe some there. So all of those fees that come up, and then you look at when you're looking at the calculator, when you're trying to figure out your ROI and all that, what's your uptime? And I always told everybody plan for 80%.
Yeah.
It's just the way you got to do it. So take that number, divide it, times it by 0.8, and then now you're getting more of a realistic up-down, type of situation. For those times that if it goes down and it's like 2 o'clock at night and you wake up in the morning, you're like, shit, it's down.
Yeah.
You just lost 4 or 5 hours of mining, and you ain't getting that back. Time is linear, man. So, it's like, well, damn, my ROI is pushed out. Other things like the price going up exponentially, difficulty coming down, whatever, those things can offset it, and kind of get you back to good. But, I take any of those calculator things. I usually add a month and a half, 2 months, just for the standpoint of that, of understanding from that. If you're going the long-term hodl, it's irrelevant to the immediate, but it is that kind of, that conscious bearing thing to say that machine is paid for. I haven't cashed it yet, but that machine is paid for, right?
Yeah.
So that is a big psychological milestone in the mining, is making sure that your rig's paid for. What I tell people to get it kind of a little easier for them, though, is we have one of the videos out there that has that depreciation spreadsheet. Look at that depreciation, put your rig components into that spreadsheet, and understand that if I depreciate over 8 months and it goes down 40%, here's what my rig is still worth.
Right.
Figure, if I had to sell everything and I was just all out, your ROI drops to about a month and a half at that point, right?
Yeah.
So where you could just completely sell everything and probably still have a little bit of extra and still have all your extra cryptos.
Yeah, and that's a good point to point out between cloud mining and building your own rig, is that you may have invested all this money, or you may have bought that 300 mega hash package, but if they say no, the difficulty is too high and you're not making any money, and so we're going to suspend your contract, you have nothing physically tangible, right? You don't have the GPU, you don't have the computer, you don't have any of those components like you do with your rig, that you can say, you know what, okay, it's not profitable anymore, let me sell it, let me go get my 60%, your 40%, whatever else you can get, and say, all right, I tried, I broke even, okay. And so I think that's a great thing. And that's another thing I always tell people when I've done a video about it, is that don't think that you have to accumulate 100% of your investment. If you pay $3,000 for your mining rig, you don't necessarily need to earn $3,000 to break even. You need to earn back 60%, 40%, however you want to see it, however you look at it. You only need to earn back that 40 to 60%, because the equipment still has value. Your assets still have value. And so don't get caught up in, I need to make $3,000 back. You don't. You don't need to make $30,000 back. You only need to make 60% of that back, or 40% of that back. And then you're making money. And
it's more of a conscious play in your head too,
right,
because there's a good chance that you're probably not going to sell your rig unless you get somebody that comes around that seems super motivated and they just want it right now, and there's a cost to that, to say, well, I could sell you mine and I could go build another one because I have the know-how to do this, and by the way, I take crypto for it, and then you get this weird kind of situation where you made a little crypto, you get all the crypto back from your machine, now you kind of jump this way and then you can go buy more, but or split the difference. But there's a lot of the different kind of rigs that we have, especially the ones that I do a lot of the painting and stuff like that. Some of that stuff ends up in the kind of our own offsite piece, and then some of it gets sold locally because we have friends of friends, family members, people that I know. There's a few that we put on eBay before, just to I think I've probably sold 3 or 4. I've sold six mining rigs, I believe, in total on eBay, just to try to get it out. We signed it and did all kinds of stuff. I sent one actually to South Africa. That was expensive.
Wow.
They really wanted it. I'm like, you could go build this. I could give you the cinematics, but they really wanted. They were a fan of the channel and stuff. But you
That's
know,
cool.
but it's not. With the ability to get GPUs and stuff, it's just. It's hard to get into the kind of sells things, and then you got the returns, and there's people get kind of sketchy on like, oh, this isn't returning what I thought it would do, and they get freaked out about it, and it's just like I don't have really time to mess with that. So it's like that's why I try to point people to the video and say, hey, here's how you can do it.
Yeah.
And it helps me iterate the videos to be better, to look at the perspectives, and that's what really people ask. For 2 years you did videos, 3 years, and then you started doing live streams. And I said, we did one live stream, and some of the comments that people came out was like, the things that I learned on the live stream were so much more, because on those tailored videos, there's so much you don't get to cover.
Yeah.
Like the specific way to like lock down risers, or what does it really take to turn on 2 power supplies, and what's that other thing that you did here, and the especially the troubleshooting stuff. I love when I run into problems on that, and anybody that watches the streams gets to see it, that problems are normal. And how do you work through that? What's the iterative process of that? And the discovery that I have to do sometimes, because most of the stuff people are like, man, I thought you were good at this, and why didn't you know what to do on this? I'm like, most of the time when you guys see me on a stream and it's live streaming, it's a new set of hardware.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a new graphics card. It's a new motherboard. It's a new everything. And I like that challenge, because of, off the video, I eat, live, and breathe this, and breathe technology, both from a development standpoint on. So, and my wife would attest to that. She'd probably type in there. I'm probably a 18-hour a day living technology. Like, I don't even get to game that much anymore, but it's, with maintaining the website and everything. But to iterate that in front of people and see them how to fix it and stuff, I think is just invaluable. And that's, I encourage other people to take that chance, and don't be discouraged by like the problems. Just, if you have to end a video because it's going long, and say, we'll come back and because you're going to turn that video off and you're going to figure the problem out. You're like, son of a, that's all it was. And then you can type a follow up to it on the comments. Like, here's how we fixed it. Here's the end of that story. Right. And, I think it's super invaluable for people that are sitting there really struggling at night, like when they're trying to get into this space and they're just table flipping ready, like, I don't get it, it's not working, and
we've had posts on the Bitcoin.Pub, and I've had direct messages where people that are like, this is the problem I'm having, and they'll put a screenshot up and they're like, can you please help me? I'm like, okay, one, I will help you and we will figure it out, but you're going to get really frustrated.
Yeah.
And the first suggestion I give you might not work.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to work through it, okay? So I usually start with that, and then we go through it and we'll get it figured out. Or if they posted it as a topic, someone else will figure it out. And that's what I like about having the forum, right? Because I know you guys got the Discord, and someone's going to ask specific questions, and you guys are going to get those answers rolling in. But is anyone going to go and scroll back up and look and say,
or search on it,
and search on it and try to find, did somebody do this? Now they're going to do that quick search, or they're going to do the quick thing of, hey, I can't figure out why this GPU isn't starting up, or something like that. And you need to go do your BIOS configurations. And so I like having that part of having a forum. And now we do have a Discord too, but it's only available to like our Patreon people. Mm-hmm. But having the forum and being able to say, hey, look, this is how you do stuff. And building that library of the tutorials on how to do. Mm-hmm. And my wife the other day, or no, not my wife, my coworker the other day, he had typed in something like Lisk paper wallet. And the first thing that came up was the Bitcoin.Pub. And he turned around to me and he goes, Chris, you guys are number 1 on this hit. I was like, are you serious? Are you serious? We're number 1 on this hit. That is amazing. And so for us, that's just a testament that the community and the forum is growing. And I'm glad I was able to talk to you today,
Yeah,
Because I mean, this is great. I mean, we get more people just learn about crypto, learn about mining, sharing opinions,
yeah,
and I mean, there's just so much out there to learn. And like for me, like
oh, yeah.
you may live it 18 hours a day, and
Mm-hmm.
then I jump in it when I've got time after work or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and I'm like, how am I going to catch up? There's just so much stuff coming out. And a lot of the people in the community, they'll post things like, hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? And I'm like, I have not heard
Mm-hmm.
about that yet, so let me go read on
Yeah,
it real quick,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then I'll share you my opinion or share with you my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Yeah, there's
glad
so much.
I'm glad that that there's at least someone else out there who can do it for 18 hours a day, and while they're at Disney, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Going all over the place for it. Yeah, no, I mean, dude, there's so much. I mean, we get a lot of questions like that too, and it's like, what's your opinion on this, and what about this? And it's like, I haven't seen it. I'll take a note. I mean, somebody asked me about Icon last night, and I'm like, I haven't researched it yet, and the having people, I look at it as everybody's like pillars of information, right? And people spend their time on really honing out specific categories or something, and then you can go and rely on them for that kind of information, and try 4 different sources. That's why when I see people either not copy the style, but just like do another video kind of like us, I'm like, great, I want to hear their perspective. I'll go
Yeah.
watch it, and I like all these different channels popping up and stuff, because I'm like, oh man, that's a different way to do that. I mean, I learned myself on that B250, that mining expert motherboard. I had 2 or 3 streams on and couldn't get it to work with 19 GPUs for the
Wow.
life of me. And then somebody else that had like 200 subscribers, figured it out with the P106 NVIDIA cards, and
Uh-huh.
made a quick video. I called him out. I'm like, dude, I've tried like 18 different cards, 5 different configuration, didn't work. I'm like, if you could do a solid and just do a cell phone video real quick and just show us it. And he said, well, I had to use these type of cards. I'm like, no shit. So then, I went out, got some of them, and sure enough, it worked. But I gave him props for it. But that's the kind of stuff, I can work on it for 18 hours, 20 hours of time, but I'm not going to know it all. Like we need to
Right.
work with each other. People have different perspectives or try something different. And yeah, I think it's huge to have that build community.
Well, let me show you guys
Yeah.
our rigs right now, and it's gonna get
Yeah.
loud because look, we got this big ass AC unit.
Oh yeah, that's
So
good.
this room is only like a 10 foot by 10 foot room. Okay.
Yeah.
So these are all our rigs back here.
Heck yeah.
So we've got, like I said, that's the 4.5 ton AC unit, and then we just got all our rigs sitting back here, all set up.
Oh yeah, doing good.
So Peter wants me to go through and actually do some cable management because my cable management is pretty bad. But
Yeah. It's functional.
but I said, I'm like, but why? Why do I need to do cable management in here? Nobody sees it. This door
Yeah.
is locked most of the time. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody's gonna ever see it. But we had to work with the landlord to let us install this thing, and I had to take out. You see the drop lights up there? I had
Oh
to
yeah,
actually
yeah.
go into the attic and take that drop light out.
Yeah.
And I had, like I said, I'm a civil engineer, and so I work
Yeah.
with a lot of mechanical engineers. And I said, this is how many watts I'm putting into the circuit, and how big of a AC unit do I need? And they were like, you need a 4.5 ton. You need a 4.5 ton AC unit. And I was like, are you kidding me? They're like, no.
Yeah, normally for 3,500 square foot homes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the funny part is people will say like, well, they'll say something like, well, don't you need to put ductwork in there? And I'm like, it's for a 3,300 square foot house, okay? Do you
Yeah.
think it's gonna have problems moving air around a 10 by 10 room?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not.
Oh, it'll just sit there and circulate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So glad you were able to join me today
Yeah.
and talk about some crypto mining and everything like that. And actually, I hope you join us on the Bitcoin.Pub every once in a
Yeah.
while and just drop a note and do some helpful hints. We invite you if you even want to drop your YouTube page, like, hey, I just posted this new video. We're all
Yeah,
about that, man. It's not a competition on the Bitcoin Pub. It's just
yeah,
about how do we get the word out? How do we help each other? And we try to keep it like not like Reddit. Okay, we
yeah, yeah,
don't we don't like people bashing on each other and saying
yeah, yeah.
oh, you're an
Same.
idiot for doing this. No, we don't want that. That's not what we're
Yeah.
about. We're about sharing the information, encouraging each other, and making money.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there people can do some stuff that sometimes you're like, what? But there's approach. Like I always, yeah, I agree with that. I think we run the Discord in the same way. It's like it's all in the delivery and the approach. If somebody's doing something that's maybe not the best way, you just say, hey, you're not letting them down easy. So I'm just saying, hey, there might be a better way than doing that. And how about trying this? And if not, man, it's cool too. You can do it any way you want. But I'm just saying this might be a better solution for that. But yeah, using that same kind of approach, I think, is a better. I mean, Reddit and just taking shots at everybody sucks.
Yeah,
And, I kind of stay away from it. I don't post a lot on Reddit just because it's like it gets super childish really quick, especially and that's why I stay a lot away from like the Bitcoin. I mean, a lot of people are like, hey, the Bitcoin Talk forum is like the center point of all like releases of ICOs, releases of coins. If there's people making miners and all this stuff, when I was making the BBT multi-miner, and I'm like, there's just so much FUD that comes on some of that sometimes.
yeah,
I'm like, I'd rather build a community that is respectful from each other and helping each other and link with other communities that are doing that, and then maybe it shows some of the more institutional communities like, hey, there's a better way, and this is I think greatness and people not being badgered and stuff attracts a lot more over time. I think people be like, I want to be there. I don't
yeah,
want to be there because those people are mean to me. Like,
yeah.
who wants to be yelled at all the time? That sucks.
Yeah, and the
So,
and the and the other nice thing is that we're still like for the mining at least we're still like this small community of people that your post doesn't get lost and there's always somebody there to at least say something.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It sucks when you put something up and you're like, hey, how do I do this? And then you don't get any responses, or you get a response from the moderator that says, why didn't you go and search that topic before posting this?
yeah,
Please delete
yeah,
this and go look for that
yeah,
topic.
yeah,
And we don't do that. It's more of like reiterating, okay, yeah, if you got this question, let's answer it again. It's
yeah.
okay. And maybe I'll go in and I'll find the link from the old one and paste it in there and say, hey, this is where we talked about it. You can look at it. If you still have questions, just let us know.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
And we're always just trying to encourage people on the Bitcoin Pub.
Yeah,
So
I'll take a look at it.
yeah. So again, thanks for joining me here, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, and I don't want to take up any more of your time. And I know my wife is already saying like, "Hey, I'm going to bed."
yeah, I hear you.
So
All right, man, it was good. All
all right, man. I'll talk to you
right,
later.
guys, see ya.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us. Yeah, this is OBS, but thanks for joining us.